In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 4 methods I've used to predict the prior Bitcoin tops, and how we can use these methods to predict the next all-time high for Bitcoin. This is a video you do not want to miss. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. In today's video, we are doing a comprehensive analysis going over 4 different methods you can use to predict when the top will be for Bitcoin and how you can use this information to better position yourself and exit the market at roughly the right time. Before we get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. In today's video, we'll be jumping into the macro charts, going over the 4 different methods we are going to be using: a trend-based method, a date range method, a structural method, and a momentum-based method. We're going to be analyzing multiple different time frames and a variety of different indicators and charts in today's video. And of course, we'll also be doing a short-term price action analysis to keep you up to date with what is happening with Bitcoin now. If you want more of this kind of content, you can join us on Telegram via the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop for cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. And if you were interested in taking your trading to the next level, you can join us in VIP by clicking the pinned comment. We have a membership sale at the moment. You can find out more information by clicking that pinned comment, clicking the detailed membership links to our membership details and our trading track record. You'll get access to our VIP channel where we post trading setups with exact entry prices, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more, including access to our group chats, our general chat, our trading chart and education chat, our daily video, news, help, and trade setup chat. Nearly 700 members. Check it out and let's dive on in. So very briefly, guys, we are going to be discussing the Voretex trend tracker. This is, of course, a trend tracking indicator, solely focuses around momentum and more so developing trends. We're going to be utilizing this to project when macro bottoms and tops are likely to be for Bitcoin. We're also going to be looking at the 12 and 18 bar theory for Bitcoin, which is a theory I've created myself and used in prior cycles, as well as the 80 on the RSI, again, something I've used in prior cycles to predict exactly when to sell. It is exactly how I was able to time the prior top. And we'll be taking a look at structural methods such as our formations on our weekly charts, our descending channel we have been in for quite some time. Overall, guys, let's jump into the price action. A quick update on the short term. Bitcoin is still more or less chopping sideways around that $72,000 region. The good things currently is Bitcoin is sustaining above that $72,000 level. Again, the $72,000 to $71,200 level is a major area of weekly resistance, if not monthly resistance at this point. And again, while we sustain above this region, it is highly likely we are going to see continuations upwards into that $85,000 level, which we'll discuss in just a moment. Again, while Bitcoin is above this macro descending trend line, there is absolutely zero reason not to be macro bullish. We'll come back and explain that too later in today's video. So all in all, short-term price action, higher time frame price action is looking good, but on the short term, we are seeing some sideways consolidation with decreasing momentum, indicating there is exhaustion present. There are sellers jumping into the market, but currently the buyers are able to absorb that selling pressure as of right now, which is a good indication the price is at least trying to sustain above these regions. If selling pressure diminishes while the price action is able to sustain, we'll eventually see a continuation higher. However, if the buyers are unable to continue to absorb the selling, we will likely see a move downwards. We'll discuss this in the video as well today. Moving over to the market data, 24-hour volume down 26%, 141 billion. 24-hour liquidations down 57%, 107 million. 67 million coming from longs, 40 million coming from shorts. Key economic releases coming out today that you need to be paying attention to is our PCE data, our personal income, and our personal spending month on month. These data releases, of course, are very telling in regards to how the economy is tracking along, particularly with inflation, as we know, as costs of goods and services increase, spending starts to decrease, etc., etc. So we have to see how this tracks, and again, this is a good indication to see how, again, the interest rate reduction is having an immediate impact on individuals within the economy itself. Now, again, this is a very small bit of data. We have to see how this develops over multiple months, particularly with future interest rate reductions, but this can be a good indication of how that initial reduction has impacted the economy, particularly in terms of spending initially. So moving on from there, we do have the DXY. The DXY hasn't done too much, sitting around the same level, coming back down to retest this level of support. Like we said yesterday, if we drop below here, we are watching for a correction, exceptionally bullish for risk assets. If we sustain, we are looking for a continuation. This runs the risk of seeing pullbacks for risk assets. Moving over to the S&P 500, we can see a little bit of pullback here on the weekly, printing another red candle with 1 day and 22 hours remaining on that weekly candle close. While we remain above our key level of support at 5,700, 5,800, we are expecting macro continuations to 6K. And if we drop below this weekly high, we are looking for macro corrections into the 50 EMA or these yearly lows at 5,003, 5,400. Only if we drop below the 50 EMA, only if we drop below these yearly lows, are we technically in a macro downtrend. So while we are sitting above here, we are expecting immediate continuation, so 6,000. If we drop below short-term to mid-term pullbacks before expected continuations, we lose that level, we are then bearish on the S&P 500. That is it, guys. Let's jump into the video. A quick word from today's video sponsor. If you want to support the channel, support me, and support yourself, sign up to BitGet, BitUnix, or BingX down below via the links. You get 15% discounts on your trading fees for life. It is where I personally trade. You can join me trading there, again, with the links down below. We'll play a quick ad, and we'll jump back in. I'd like to introduce our partner, BitUnix. BitUnix is a global, non-KYC, no country restriction exchange, making it a perfect exchange to trade on if you're from the USA, from Canada, the Netherlands, or just prefer to trade without KYC. This exchange is a futures and spot exchange with over 200 different trading pairs and some of the lowest fees in the game. If you sign up with my link down below, you'll get access to 15% off your trading fees, as well as an exclusive reward center where you can claim up to a multitude in USDT prizes. So go ahead and sign up with my link down below for 15% off, and I'll see you in there. Okay, legends, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, a lot of people are starting to throw up top prediction targets. So throwing out 100K, they're throwing out 200K, I've seen like 400,000, right? And I think as it's normal to want certain prices. It's normal to look to certain numbers and have these targets, these arbitrary numbers, 100,000, 120,000, and I think that's totally normal, but it's the completely wrong way to do it. And I'm going to explain why it's the wrong way to do it, because simply a number is simply a representation of value. It is arbitrary. It means very little unless it's a psychological level, such as 100,000, 10,000, 50,000, these whole numbers have psychological significance. In other than that, it's just a value or a representation of value for an asset. It is based against the dollar and is simply an evaluation method. That is all currency is, an evaluation method of a good or a service or an asset or whatever the hell we're talking about. So if you're basing a target of when you're going to sell on a particular number, that is a very, very poor way to do it, because that number may not have any degree of significance in terms of where the price action is going. It might not be the best place to sell, and it also might not even be reached, particularly if your price targets are ridiculously high. So we're going to be giving you methods to look to sell based on what the data is suggesting. Now, the data is derived, so the indicators are derived from price action. Price action is made up of buyers and sellers, so when the indicators are expressing weakness, particularly significant shifts, that could be an indication that the trend is shifting, and if the trend is shifting, it is a representation that the sellers are starting to step in. Now, if we sit on the higher time frame, we use macro confluence, that can be used as macro trend reversal points, and that alone can be used as actual raw data to sell, not an arbitrary number. So there's multiple methods you can use to kind of predict when the top is likely. Now, tops are much harder to predict than bottoms. The reason being is because we don't have historical data at most all-time high prices, where when we see these macro corrections, we're moving into levels of historical support or historical price action, where we've seen how the price action again is just a representation of buyers and sellers react at those price points. So there is two theories. We're going to start off on the monthly chart. The first one is the 12 and 18 bar theory. This is using a date range trend. Now, not any one of these theories are going to exactly predict a top, but if you can use them in confluence with each other, it is going to give you a good foundation to look for points to sell or look for points of interest if they are reached, regardless of what the price is actually at the time of the top. So the 12 and 18 bar theory simply uses historical bull runs as a predictor of when the top will begin for the current expansion phase. If we're taking a look at the 12 and 18 bar theory, what we are doing is we're taking a look at the date range between monthly breakouts of the bear market resistances and prior all-time highs and extrapolating that forward, and then using the largest number from those trend ranges to expect or to predict when the next top for Bitcoin will likely be in terms of the date. So let's go ahead and do that. We're looking at prior highs. We're looking at monthly breakouts. We draw our monthly bar, that's 8 months. We take our next breakout over here. We draw the monthly bar, that is 13 months. So over here, 12 months. That is going to be our 12 bar theory. So we take the largest number, 12 bars, and we apply that to the monthly breakout, which happened right over here. Then we're going to do the same thing with the bear market resistance. This is our bear market resistance. We have 18 bars. Our bear market resistance monthly close, we have 16 bars. Again, the largest of the two is 18. We drag that, apply that to the breakout point of the bear market resistance, and this will give us a 1 to 2 month range of where the top is expected to be. And that lines up between March and April 2025. So based on the 12 to 18 bar theory, we are expecting a top for Bitcoin around March to April 2025. We might see it a little bit sooner, we might see it a bit later. But why this information is important is because if we see macro signs of reversals developing after April, March 2025, we have to take that at face value and maybe apply a little bit more significance to that for a potential macro top, rather than if we had to see tops develop before March to April 2025. So that is going to be our first method. The second method is a method I've used in all prior cycles to predict exactly when to sell, not the exact top, but within a 4-week period of the top to avoid massive drawdowns on my positions. I used this method last cycle, and I'll use this method this cycle again. This is simply tracking momentum shifts on the higher time frame. We are particularly looking at the 80 point on the RSI. What you can notice is in prior cycles, when the price action breaks above the 80 on the RSI, we generally remain above the 80 for around 4 to 5 months. The interesting thing we are watching is the negative shift, not the positive shift, but the negative shift. So when the RSI pivots back below the 80 point, particularly over here, we can see it over here. I've drawn the vertical red lines, and over here, again, the pivots happen at the closing prices of the candles, and thus the pivots occur once the RSI closes. We can see on all of these scenarios, we have seen macro reversals essentially develop, except the 2021 scenario. But we didn't go much higher than that candle either way. We're up a few $1,000s. So we're still projected a pretty good estimate of when these macro reversals were coming in for Bitcoin's price action down to these lows. And that can be a fantastic tool at projecting how the buyers and sellers are going and how that strength is actually developing on the macro scale. So if I see the price action break above and I see that pivot back below, I will be looking at that for a potential sign of a macro reversal and thus a top for Bitcoin. Moving over to the next one. This is going to be our Voretex trend tracker. The Voretex trend tracker is a momentum indicator, but it more focuses on the strength and development of the trend. It is more a high time frame indicator. So what we can see here, it can be used to predict periods of where mass selling is likely to occur, and where mass buying is likely to develop from. It doesn't necessarily predict tops and bottoms, but it predicts where the mass selling is likely to start and where the mass buying is likely to start. And we can also use a specific trend line, which I've drawn in over here, to predict where the tops could be for Bitcoin if it were reached. So we'll use this in two methods. Number one, if we see the price action reach this macro downtrend for the Voretex trend tracker, and we have confluence on our prior methods, we will then be expecting the top to be for Bitcoin, no matter where the price is. And this is why I said at the start, it doesn't matter what the price of the asset is at the time of the top. It is irrelevant. The price is arbitrary. It is a method of valuation. It is not going to move to a certain number for the sake of reaching a certain number, unless it is a psychological level of significance, or it has reached that price prior and has historical buying or selling significance based on what investors or traders have done in the past at those particular price points. But if it has never reached that area before, it is completely arbitrary. It means absolutely nothing. The price of the asset is essentially irrelevant at those levels in terms of when you are looking to sell, other than your own emotional and self-serving biases you have put on the asset to look to sell at those points. And if you're saying, Whale, that makes no sense, or Whale, you're wrong, it's highly likely you've got a self-serving bias towards a particular price point because you want to see that price go there to sell at a certain profit. Now, again, you can say, oh, Whale, you're bearish. I'm not bearish. I've been bullish this entire time. I'm trying to instill fact and reasoning. I'm trying to make sure you look at the price and look at the charts the way you should be looking at, not from a perspective of emotion and greed. You can look at this and take it if you want, but this is the way I'm going to be doing it. Again, I've called the exact tops in prior cycles. I also bought the exact bottoms in prior cycles. How I did that, I posted all on YouTube. I was here months in advance telling people to sell on this way up, months in advance telling people to buy down over here. We took our entries, we're still in those positions. So the information I'm sharing with you has been proven. I've used this for many, many years now, and I'm sharing it again. We are watching Voretex trend reaches trend line where you're potentially looking for a top for Bitcoin. If we want to see a macro downtrend start or a cataclysmic correction, when we see the Voretex trend cross over to red, we generally see steep capitulation into lows. Again, we can see it over here. We can see that over here into lows, and we can see this over here into lows. So again, when the Voretex trend indicator flips over to red, it is an indication that significant selling is about to commence, and we generally move to capitulation into the lows. When the indicator turns green, we generally see the selling pressure end and significant buying pressure begin to resume, and that takes us into these macro bull runs. Now, this generally doesn't predict the tops and bottoms, the indicator itself, but it can predict when macro selling and macro buying is about to start, and we can use this in confluence of the indicators, particularly if there's downtrend, to project when likely tops are going to occur. Again, that is just another method we can use, and there's heaps of methods I use to predict bottoms on the macro trends and tops on macro trends, but these are just 4 of the main ones we're looking at in today's video. The next one we're going to be taking a look at is a simple structural analysis for Bitcoin. This is going to be giving an exact price target that is likely to hit. Now, Bitcoin can very well go higher. I've done mathematical calculations on this channel about where I think Bitcoin could potentially go. The price targets come to around 96,000 to 132,000. Again, I did these analysis many times on a channel, maybe about 4 videos in the last 2 years going over those price targets. Maybe I'll have to link it at some point or do it again, but it's around 96 to 132,000 as a achievable, realistic target for a Bitcoin top. But we can take a structural approach to that as well. The first structural approach is going to be simply looking at our descending channel, doing a measured move, which is taking the width of the channel, applying to the breakout point. That is going to give us an initial target based on the structural consolidation. And the second is taking the extended move into the high from the prior low, applying that to the breakout point for an expected move up into the $100,000 range. So there are 2 targets coming from this range. We have 85,000 directly from the breakout, and a macro target of just over 100,000 based on the structural move itself, or should I say the extended move prior to the structural consolidation. So based from what are we saying here? A structural formation, the price expectations are 85 and 103,000. Now that lines up within that 96 to 132,000 region. It also is a realistic target for Bitcoin in terms of the date range trend we have if we're expecting a top for Bitcoin, where's my chart, to happen between March and April 2025. Now, will this be the top forever? No, okay? It may just be a top for Bitcoin before we see a correction back down and build up into a October 2026 top for the 4-year cycle. That is very, very plausible. But if we're looking at what the data is suggesting, it is suggesting maybe we see a slightly sooner top than what we have seen historically. Something to think about. Anyway, guys, let's jump over to the short-term price action. Not really that much happening here. The one thing I'm really paying attention to is this channel formation. We've created these highs over here we are watching. We've created these lows over here we are watching. So we do have this very clear range we are kind of chopping between. Again, not really watching too much. The only things I'm really concerned about is going to be a loss of our low point at 70,800. Again, if we go back to higher time frame chart, we have got that support at 71,200. Therefore, a loss of this low range, 71,200 to 70,800. This blue box, a drop below here, we have this VRPV gap to 72,000. We will likely see a quick flash correction into this area of liquidity. That is the downside risk for Bitcoin. The upside projections for Bitcoin, again, is going to be a continuation into that high 70,000 to touch that prior all-time high price at around 74,000-ish. So again, watch the downtrend break to see expected continuations. Until then, we are very likely going to continue to chop, and we do have news events coming today, so keep that in mind. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a fantastic day. We'll catch you in the video tomorrow. See you then.